That is to say, 8 degrees altogether, except that right under the pole there lies a bare rock in the midst of the sea. Its circumference is almost 33 French miles, and it is all of magnetic stone. This is word for word everything that I copied out of the author Jacob Ganoyan's years ago. Gerardus Mercator, 1577 letter to John D. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here on Revolution Radio, and I thank all of you for taking the time to be with us this evening. I have a special guest with me, Ebon Kim. Ebon, are you there, brother?
Yes, I am. How's it going, Zen?
All right, man. Hey, I appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening. Ebon's got a really interesting story and testimony to share with you this evening, and specifically, he is hoping to make a journey to this area, which has now come to, as far as world opinion and consideration, a lot of people have been forced to reconsider what may be at the North Pole. And for those that are biblical cosmologists, geocentrists, you know that the North Pole is the only pole as far as the flat earthen plane, and that it is at the center. And and so, can you tell us, your fascination with this particular area of study, and also share with the community your websites, contact information, YouTube, Facebook, anything of that nature?
Well, I don't have a website yet. I've been meaning to, but I haven't gotten to it yet. I do live stream. I typically do it 2-3 times a week, just kind of whatever I've been researching. I just let people know and give my insights onto it. And a lot of it's just watching a lot of videos too. But when I watch the videos, I also like to go to the source of what people are talking about and also go from there. So you can find me easily on YouTube, although YouTube is really stifling down any talk of flat Earth. So if you can't
Right.
find me there, you can find me on Periscope. You can find me on DLive. You can find me on Steemit, which I go through vim.tv until DTube is able to live stream. And you can also find me on restream.me. So there's plenty of places where I put my videos up. I don't do a lot of uploads. I just do live streaming because right now with DLive and going to the blockchain, you have to reside your videos somewhere else, and you link it there. But if that gets taken down, well, you're not going to see it on that blockchain. So if you do live, then it stays on a blockchain there. So it's a little bit harder for them to take it down, but they can hide it from people. I mean, it just, I guess we're trying to find a way where we can communicate with each other and leave messages to each other because I have not been awake I thought I was awake 2 years ago. I wasn't. Probably my real awakening was maybe 2 months ago, really, when I finally dived into flat Earth and realized, okay, most likely than not, it's flat.
Yeah, right.
And so yeah, but it took a lot of videos, and if those videos weren't there on YouTube, I probably wouldn't have found it, because I don't know if a lot of people know how to keep their videos in different places. So I'm just glad that the people who are still making videos on YouTube, that YouTube still has those videos and they haven't taken them down all the way.
Yeah, and you are correct that they are cracking down, they are censoring, and they are making it much more difficult for individuals like myself that have been making content for a very long time on YouTube. I've been on YouTube since 2007 and have been on the air since 2008. And I've noticed, especially about 3 years ago, that they changed the algorithms, and also as far as the pay with regard to AdSense and all that, that they made it a lot more difficult for individuals just making truth content and sharing it to be able to do it exclusively. That it was a lot easier a few years back, but now it's even getting it tightened more and more, and they're starting to make sure that when people search out terms that they get a lot of what are the disinformation sites, the corporate controlled mainstream propaganda media outlets and things of that nature. And so, um,
Definitely.
yeah.
And
And I
it's
think it's, well,
oh, go
just
ahead,
really
sorry.
quickly, I was just going to say that I think it's really important for people to to seek out alternatives to YouTube and a lot of these, the up and coming, the blockchain, the different sites like, just different video. Like, there's one that the YouTube guy um, is involved in now. I forget exactly what it's called. Starts with TH. But anyways, so yeah, I think it's good that people search out and seek out different avenues to make their videos available and to upload their content. So
Yeah. It's it is crazy. I was just thinking about how when you mentioned all this stuff about when you do try to find more answers, you're just going to be segued into areas that they already know that you're going to go looking for answers. So they already set up places where you're going to have to go and watch. So you're going to listen to someone most likely where you don't know their names, you don't know their faces, you just know that they make a lot of videos and you know their voice. And you're going to have a lot of music with what they're saying, scary music, and they're going to pull you back into some type of control system. The control system, whether it's government, whether it's money, whether it's organized religion, the things that they control. So, one of my thoughts that I've been really, really contemplating on making, very similar to Mark Sargent's um, clues videos, flat Earth clues,
hmm
but it's going to be a video about the layers of awakening, like the process that I
yeah,
came about of awakening. There's so many layers you have to go through, but what you're going to end up noticing and seeing, and it feels like everyone else who's gone through this awakening process, they go through the same thing, and
right.
it's just very eerie that everyone goes through the same thing. And I won't say I may not agree with Mark Sargent on everything. I mean, flat Earth is one of the last conspiracy theories you kind of dive into, but after that, you just realize that you can explore anything because they've hidden everything for you from you. You know?
Right, right. Yeah, and so much of what we thought to be truth or reality, we find out is lies, just steeped upon more and more lies and a lot of just straight up disinformation. And, I do believe that there's an agenda, and I think that a lot of that, the whole thing for establishing the Darwinian, Copernican, heliocentric model is to not only lead us into believing we evolved of apes and the whole theory of evolution, but I think the next aspect of it is that they want to introduce the ancient aliens as our gods and our creators, and we can see that coming to the forefront, as far as like Ancient Aliens, the TV show, and
Mm-hmm.
childhood and different things like that. But so yeah, let's talk about that. The journey to awakening and kind of how it happened for you. Did Were you into like? Did you look into 9/11 and government sponsored terror and New World Order and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I was always kind of a conspiracy theorist. I loved the X Files as a TV show, and I would just kind of like I never looked into the conspiracy theories. I just kind of knew it just I can't really trust the forms of information that I get from government or the
hmm
mainstream media, and so I was always like, I I they could just make it whatever they want. We won't really know. I'm agnostic, not an atheist. Agnostic. Like I just don't know whether we can ever find out, really. Um, and I, people give people lump in agnostics with atheists, but I disagree. I mean, even Thomas, the apostle, was an agnostic, and so I kind of follow in that boat where, heck, if an agnostic acknowledges something from something very spiritual that they experienced, that's more power to whatever that experience is, whether it's Jesus, whether it's the highest of the high, God, or Lord of something else, whatever it is. If we go, yeah, it's real. I mean that. Of course, we're still gonna say we don't know for sure, but I mean, we're gonna be like, okay, that was the experience. I'm not gonna deny it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't see it as a bad thing, but there is faith involved, but it's not a belief. It's just we know, we just don't know for sure what it was. We just know, but I mean, the thing is, we keep searching. I think you do too. It's kind of hard because once you fully believe in something that you've got the right answer, you stop looking. Once when you think you've got the right answer, but you still got that little bit of I don't know 100%. You keep looking. So that's really what it is we just have to keep looking, because once we think we found something, and maybe we did, maybe we found it 100%, but we still have that doubt, that's still okay. But if you probably got it wrong, there's like a 1% chance you're wrong, and you are wrong, but at that point, at 99%, you go, oh, I know it is. Then you're gonna stop looking, and you're gonna know that you were wrong at the end. So you gotta just keep that little bit of skepticism, even if you kind of have a feeling that it's 100%, you're 100% sure it's true.
We're all always learning. The whole thing about life is that there's always stuff to learn, and nobody's got it all figured out. And so, but I do agree with you that the journey to awakening is similar, that the steps are similar, and that even for myself, early on, when I first ran away from Christianity and the faiths of my forefathers and the traditions of my elders, I moved on to atheism and agnosticism, and also moved into shamanism and things like that, and had to really come full circle till I was brought back to prophecy. But certainly I think it's similar for everybody. Even my son went through this kind of similar journey. But once you come to know, as far as like biblical cosmology, and you realize that most certainly there is a creator, and that this place was established unique, as well as that we were established unique. There's no way that life and DNA and the building blocks of life just came about randomly. Everything was designed with intelligence, and so that divine inspiration, you can find the fingerprints of God on everything if you really look and come to know that. And there are things that can be trustworthy, as far as like prophecy, when you understand that certain texts, certain books of wisdom, certain things, and this is worldwide. It's not in any way just centered on, or focused or centralized on Christianity or Judaism, that there's truth in a lot of things scattered all over. But we have to also realize that there's another power at work here as well, and that the fallen angels and Legion, they have also been working since the very beginning in order to establish pagan and counterfeit theologies, and that they are working to promote the dark side and to muddle up the truth of what is connected to the light, in the same way that the light is revealing itself and exposing the dark side. And so that's the challenge, is trying to really wade through the disinformation and come to knowledge on what is truth and what isn't.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing though, because when you get fed so much information, you just kind of learn to know which one's most likely disinformation. which something else that might be more valid. And it usually has to happen with something that you experienced that you know was real. For me, it was ayahuasca, and so whenever something I'm researching kind of lines up with what I experienced through ayahuasca, it's like, okay, there's a connection here. I'm gonna follow it. Otherwise, there's really no connection. I just pass it by. I mean, there are things where I've watched videos, I've listened to people before I've taken the ayahuasca experience, and I was like, oh, this is when I thought I was awake too, and it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna follow this guy, this person. It's just crazy talk. And then after the ayahuasca, nothing is by chance. Nothing's really a coincidence. It's all there for you to see. You gotta just pay attention to the signs, and once you see the signs, you're like, I mean, it's to me. If I was listening to myself talk like half a year ago, I would thought, man, I just turned crazy, right? And so it's just a weird feeling, but I know I'm doing the right thing. I know I'm going down the right path. I know that it's not. I don't want. It's not about ego. It's not about fulfilling my potential. It. The thing is, you have to be humble. You have to really know why you're here, what you're here to do. And if you don't do that, well, why even bother? Just go and keep doing what you were doing before you're awake. Of course, it's hard to do that. Once you wake up, it's hard to go back to sleep. I don't know. I don't know how anyone could do it. Anyone who could wake up and go, I'm just gonna go back to sleep. I'm just gonna work my 9 to 5. Save up for retirement. Do, go vote, go take vacations, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how, but what makes it tough is like I also don't know how to survive in this new type of system that we want to move into. That's
Well, let me ask you about your experience and where was it and how was it that you were introduced to ayahuasca and why it was that you sought it out and wanted to have the experience.
so. I don't know how exactly. I was just watching videos and I was just still dubious about it because I don't really take mind altering types of drugs or things like that. I mean, like I don't even do it for recreation. It's just I prefer to be very focused on just knowing things, learning things, and
Mm-hmm.
messing with stuff and just building things, being creative. And I feel like I've taken pot before and I didn't like the experience. The experience was weird, but I didn't like the experience. I didn't like the after experience. It's just like when you're getting drunk. It's like I don't really like getting drunk, and I also don't like the hangover. So why would I do it?
Yeah.
But for the ayahuasca, they say the experience is the same. Like once you take it, you're gonna experience something and that everyone experiences. And I didn't want too much details because I want to know what that experience that everyone experiences, right? So I was like, okay, so how do I get it? It's illegal in the United States. I'm not going to tell people where I took it or when, or like how I took it. People will know when I took it, but I don't want to incriminate myself. I'll plead the fifth
Yeah.
anyway. So
Yeah. Well, let me just ask you this. So you didn't get it from anybody, or you did? Did you do it alone?
yes,
Did you do it as part of a ritual? I mean, how was it that you
so
set up the experience?
I brewed it myself. I did it alone, and it
Mm-hmm.
was at night. I did most of the suggestions. Is you know that rice and water experiment where they put rice and water. There's 3 jars. One's a control, and one jar with rice you put in one cabinet, and you just think negative thoughts and harmful thoughts and things like that. And then you on another jar, you pour love into it and happiness and things like that. And after a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you can see the control and the difference between the stuff that you would put your bad thoughts into, your negative
Mm-hmm.
thoughts, and that one gets really moldy and looks pretty bad. But the one where you pour your happy thoughts and your just positive thoughts towards that rice water experiment, that jar looks like it was just poured in yesterday, you know? And so,
That is that's very interesting. Can you elaborate on that experience? I mean, that experiment, because I've never heard of that, but I do
oh,
know, like, in that movie, What the Bleep, that your thoughts and your intentions, that plants, also feel, and that the water, the vibration on a microscopic level, that it will, um, with beautiful and loving thoughts, there's really sacred geometrical patterns and stuff. And they'll, if you send thoughts of like hate or, you know, uh, antagonism or anything like that, that there's really scattered and disruptive and those kind of patterns. So I kind of get the gist of what you're talking about, but if you would elaborate on the experiment that you're talking about.
okay. So I'm just pulling up something from CSIOP.org by Carrie Poppy. Basically, Dr. Masaru Emoto, he's a Japanese scientist. He he simply turns normal rice into gross rice simply by yelling at it. And so what people did was they saw this experiment and they go, "Hey, I want to do it because it's pretty simple. All you get is three
Uh,
jars. You have your control, which all the jars you just pour all the water, same water all at once, same rice, same jars, same cleanliness. You're trying to make everything as equal as possible,
Similar, right?
right?
Yeah.
So you got one jar that's a control. You put it in the same cabinet as the rest. Hopefully, that when you take it out, um, it's not sunny outside. It's going to have the same ambient light, whatever. You just want to just create a very neutral environment. So all that you'll pour into is just your thoughts and emotions. So he puts three separate jars into three separate cabinet areas, closes it, and I think either a few minutes a day or a couple times a day, you'd have to look at the experiment and the positive thoughts, the water and the rice look like there's no mold. There's really nothing bad about it, just by visually looking at it. And then
Uh-huh.
the control, you've got just your typical growth. A little bit of mold. You can
Yeah.
see the water turning brownish and murky. But then when you open the one with the negative thoughts and energy that you poured into it, that thing looks disgusting. It's like almost 10 times worse than the control. It just looks like someone threw it in the garbage, took it out of the garbage, mixed it in with other garbage, and put it back in a jar. It's just disgusting. And that was just that kind of you know
That's interesting.
made me just
How long?
um you could do it for months. Some people just they repeat the experiment.
Yeah.
They'll do it for a week or two and they'll see the results. Some people do it for like 1 month, 2 months, even 6 months, just to see how long the good positive water
Keep it
jar
vibrant.
looks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that made me think,
That's very cool.
yeah, just how our thoughts go out. Um, it things get affected by it, and so
Hmm. Right.
I try not to bring that negative energy to my family, especially my kids. So I'm just doing really my hardest, and it gets really easy to do. Just stay positive all the time,
Hmm.
and just think happy thoughts. Don't really be, because when you get depressed or something like that and angry, you're just gonna mull over it. Just try to find a way to snap out of that, and
Yes.
and things start, and then it gets really harder to get into that mindset. And I'm grateful for it. And I think if everyone did the same thing, we'd all be at a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a remarkable experience, an experiment, because I learned a long time ago, just in the things that I was involved in, that really church is not somewhere you go, and prayer is not something that you do, but it's a way of being, and that if you can learn to really focus your thought in positivity that what you send out into the world is what will, as the Bible says, you reap what you sow.
Mhm.
And the whole thing of dharma and karma is very much real. The energetic and the laws of attraction, magnetism, the electromagnetic universe, that's really how God has established the creation and the inner workings of it, so that what we choose to place our focus on, how we are, how we act, our behaviors, our intent, those kind of things really do manifest our lessons in reality and the kind of things that we attract to ourselves. And that's why it's really important, in my opinion, to select wisely the people and the circumstances and the habitual routines that you choose to involve yourself in. And that, if you have very negative people in your life, it's going to affect you in the reality and the lessons that you have to deal with. But if you put and choose to put and only allow very positive and creative and beautiful people, harmonious into your life, that are also very careful with their uh, creative abilities and what they choose to attract and what they choose to put out. Well, those are the kind of people that are really creating miracle and really creating beautiful realities. And those are the kind of people that I like to be around and choose to be around. And, I try to teach others about their responsibility in the creative process, because a lot of people don't understand these kind of, as far as the laws of attraction, they don't understand their responsibility in creating their own reality. And a lot of them, because they don't understand these things and have never done like the experiment that you've talked about, they don't understand that their insanity and their depression and their just being angry at the world is why they keep attracting negativity and having lessen over time, and every day they keep having the routine of having to learn, why it is you don't want to be that way, but the lesson escapes them because they don't put the connections to, well, I'm responsible for creating that, and so not understanding that people create really negative outcomes, negative situations out of ignorance. And so, that's why I do think it's important for people to come to understanding on these kind of concepts, which a lot of people would say that they're new age, but in truth, they're biblical and they're exactly how the Most High established the creation is with these laws of attraction and magnetism and energy and things of that nature.
Yeah, and I agree. It's the new some of the new age stuff is actually old age, and
Right.
the new age paired it out by whatever control system. It's just something different that disregards everything in the past. So it disregards the old age and comes up with something totally different, which is it can just be mumbo jumbo, or it could just be something where everything's hidden. Maybe it's just secretly bad for people because they're going to something they have no idea. It could be some form of Kabbalistic magic or something like that. And so it's hard. I feel like I don't want to dive into the new age. I want to find stuff that's really old, because what's amazing is the more stuff you look back towards history, the more amazing things are, because you realize that what we've been told all this time is that we've always been separated, and there's there's no way that one civilization could have visited another civilization. But what we find is that all these old ancient civilizations, they've known about other civilizations around their time period.
They were
So
all connected.
yeah, they're all connected, and so there's just one big, very diverse civilizations thousands of years ago, and of course, um, what our controllers are saying is, you know, they're just using like copper at that time. They couldn't communicate with each other. They couldn't sail to around the world. Of course, we know it's not around, and all this other stuff. So, um, but we know this because we've been through the layers of disinformation, and we're just
Right.
what's great
Peeling
about
back the onion, yeah.
the people who are awakening. We don't segregate ourselves into like a cult personality. We don't focus on our egos because all the elites, no normal person, ordinary person is going to go ahead and talk or have an interview with them. Like if you went to go and talk with, say, Neil deGrasse Tyson, I don't think that would ever happen if he tried for like decades. Same with me. But someone like you, I was able to email me back, and I'm like, awesome. I can talk with Zen, and Zen's done so much work on what I want to focus on, and you're just how great can that be? Yet all this time, the controllers of the systems that we have, they've segregated us where you can't have their access unless you do something for them or something like that. And I don't even know how that goes. Um, so it's great that we're all able to just share our time with each other because one person, no matter how, I mean, we don't live that long anyway, but one person can't know everything.
Right,
Everyone knows
right.
different things, have different stories to relate. I'm surprised you didn't know about the water and rice experiment, but I'm glad you know now. But that's something new you can carry on and have a discussion with. And
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm going to learn a couple of things where I didn't know before at all, because I already know I've learned a lot from you from watching your videos and your interviews with other people. So it's
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like I just have to clear up some things and ask questions where, because who knows if your your thoughts or opinions changed since those interviews that might have been 2 or 3 years ago. So
Right, right,
it's
yeah.
good to just kind of re-ask those questions of, is it the same answer as 2 3 years ago? Because 2 3 years ago so many things changed.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's only been since 2015 that I even came to knowledge on as far as the biblical cosmology, and that the Earth is flat. And so, yeah, there's a lot of evolution in my thought and the interviews that I've done, and I've continued to learn and grow as we all have. But certainly, because I have been on the air since 2008, there's a lot of material and a lot of people that especially have been following me for a very long time have seen how I've grown and changed and come to knowledge on a lot of different things. And so, yeah, we're all constantly growing and learning. And as you said, nobody can focus on all the different areas. And what my forte and my interest has been is the study of ancient manuscripts. And so that's really where my focus has been. And so I don't really spend a lot of time reading others' work or other people's opinion, but I only focus on studying the very ancient manuscripts and the mythologies and the wisdom texts from all over the world. And so that dominates my time. And because I choose to focus on that, I've learned a lot of things with regard to the prior times and the ancient cultures and civilizations and how the ancient mythologies and oral traditions tie together with the prophetic timeline and the conspiratorial side of what's going on in the world. And because of that, I've really been able to unify the puzzle of truth, which for a lot of people that understanding the bigger picture has eluded them because most people are narrow minded and only study a small portion of what is available with regard to the knowledge and the ancient wisdom and most people don't even read their Bible, so they don't even understand that side of it. And so There's a lot of information out there, and this is definitely the time, I believe, that the Most High is pouring out the Spirit upon all flesh. And so, individuals like yourself and myself and others that have been, going down the different rabbit holes and examining things and coming to new understanding, especially on the ancient times and the antediluvian age and the, like as far as Atlantis and all of those mythologies, that really they were very much wiser and more knowledgeable and had greater technologies than we do now. And this is something that, has been hidden from most people. And as far as the mainstream opinion, the majority opinion, all of that is skewed. We think that, those people were primitive when the fallen angels being here, they were able to create megalithic structures and cyclopean sites and temple complexes aligned to the stars, which we can't even replicate now, So
Yeah.
who are we to say that they were primitive?
Yeah. It's funny because everything gets reversed, inversed, and and just we see that time and time again. That's just another layer of the awakening. We see that happening. And yeah, I'm not surprised. Almost nothing surprises me. Like when it was flat Earth, when I find out that okay, it's flat, it's most likely it's flat Earth, and I was unlike most people who go through it, I was just like, makes sense, right? I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, all of this makes sense. Why would they fake everything? Why would they lie and all this other stuff? Is like okay, it makes sense, but some people kind of go down to different ideas. Like it, they lie because they want to control us. But I feel like, well, they could do that with it being a flat Earth. So what exactly is it with being a flat Earth that makes it where they need it to be a globe Earth? And that's where I started focusing on the magnetic North Pole, not the geographic North Pole, not the South Pole, the magnetic North Pole. And the interesting thing is when you start going into flat Earth, they take you to Antarctica. Like most of the focus is on
Right.
Antarctica. Let's like if it's a dome, we're gonna find the edge of the dome and we're gonna see what's out there. We've got the Admiral Byrd saying that there's a territory as large as America, the United States, out there that we haven't explored. So a lot of people are going to want to go and explore Antarctica because there's a peace treaty in Antarctica. And they're like, there's got to be something there if they've got a peace treaty of all these nations. But the thing
Right.
is, magnetic North Pole, they just say, it's nothing there. It's just balls of ice, snow, glaciers, whatever. Yet there's a vast difference between the Antarctica or just the southward boundaries and the Arctic Circle because it's almost a dead zone down in the southern areas in
Right.
Antarctica, right? But in the Arctic region, there's so much life there. A lot of animals, like there's just almost at least a year of where there's a huge herring population, and all these types of mammals go and feed off the herring. I mean, why would there be so many animals going to the Arctic? You've got the Arctic, terns. You've got so many migrations with just animals that go to the Arctic. And if it's nothing there, just ice and cold, then why would they go there? It makes no sense. They would use those migrations to go somewhere like in Hawaii or some tropical
Right.
paradise. But no, it's the Arctic.
Hmm. Yeah. Studying and looking at, even the ancient maps, Mercator, and the things that he cites there, like even with what I had read about, this four quadrants, that, in my opinion, lines up with exactly what is described as Eden. And then reading the ancient mythologies like Hyperborea, the mythologies of Shambhala, Asgard, Thule, Atlantis, even, and even Paradise, and saying the stories of what in the Bible is referenced as the Mount of the Congregation and the sides of the north. All of these things led me to the study of the north. And so, even that word, the Hebrew word for north, Saphalon, it means hidden place, treasured, and kept secret. These kind of connotations are associated to the north, and so I also learned that basically that the north has the entrance way for where Jacob's ladder is, and that um, there's the place to enter into paradise and also into Sheol. And so all of these different ancient mythologies, and even with the description of the magnetic mountain, the black lodestone mountain, Rupes Negra, and then the whirlpool, the swirling whirlpool, the abysmal chasms surrounding it, that it leads into the hollow of the earth, and then looking into the mythologies of like Odysseus and Jason and the Argonauts and the Aeneid by Virgil, it talks about this what is supposed to be this ancient sea monster called the Charybdis, and that it was this basically a whirlpool that is talked about in the ancient mythologies. And so I came to understand that all of these things were speaking about the same thing with regard to the North Pole as the center of the earthen plane. And so, that's when I decided to write my book on all that, on paradise, the sides of the north and the mouth of the congregation. But yeah, the North fascinated me as well, and I wanted to know more about it, and studying the Hyperboreans and the ancient traditions that speak about the demigods as living up in that area, and that the seed of humanity even started there. So,
Mhm.
can you talk about your explorations and your the things that you've come to know and learn about the North, and why it was that it interests you? And also, before we go into that, can you also talk about your journey just to awakening? What was it that led you to interest in conspiracy theories? Like, was it 9/11? Because I know that's the main catalyst for most people. But and then we can go into as far as the cosmology and your study and your interest on that, and how it is that you came to knowledge that the Earth is truly flat.
Sure. And just before I go on, I was playing with gematria stuff. I
Hmm.
got started on just kind of looking to the septenary because of Maddie Leeds, and if if you if you type in hidden land and North Pole, the septenary is 33.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
But also, what's interesting is if you type in Yggdrasil, the Norse tree of life, and
Oh
hidden
yeah.
land, the full reduction are both 48, and the reverse full reduction are both 51. So they're identical in that aspect.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So all I'm looking at with the gematria is just because I could type in a whole bunch of words, and sometimes they don't match, but I just try to look at any pattern where two of either the English ordinal, the reverse ordinal, or the full reduction, reverse full reduction, or the septenary match, and then I just kind of take it from there as like, hey, that's kind of interesting. Is that there for a reason, or is that just
Uh,
coincidence? That's just something at least to keep in mind, but not necessarily just throw away. I mean, it has nothing tangible for me at the moment, but if something else comes up and in my studies and I type that word in and it matches with something with the gematria, then I'm like, huh, that this is getting really, really um, interesting. I guess scary in a way too, because I mean, so many coincidences just kind of it gets really weird. But anyways, so yeah, I was in the U.S. Navy, and during 9/11 is weird. I was on the USS Carl Vinson. We're on our Westpac. We're going over to the um, um, what am I thinking? Iraq, and this was before the Iraqi War, and still carrying on what Bill Clinton was doing within Iraq, and I was at that point with a lot of studying and looking through. I was a conscientious objector. I just couldn't bomb people I didn't know for
Uh-huh.
reasons the military won't say,
Right.
right? And I
Right.
was like, you know what, I really like the military because the people I met, my experience with being in the U.S. Navy was probably the best life experience I've had. Just I learned so much from it. Just
What
the
year? What year were you in?
I was in 1999,
Okay.
and I was just I was just like is because that's a place where you can excel, right? You just know your
Mm-hmm.
potential, what you're capable of doing, and they allow that. And then with the realization of, do I really want to kill, like first during A school after boot camp, me and a friend, we were very just gung ho at that point. It's like, you know, our physical shape, we can be in the Navy, the SEALs. Should we become SEALs? And we're just talking about all the time. Is like, what if they tell us to kill like women and children? Would you do it? And he goes, "Oh no, I can't do that." It's like, yeah, I can't do that either, right?
Right on.
So
Good
that was like
enough.
the first step. Is like, okay, so we're not going to join the SEALs. We'll just keep doing what we're doing. And then it dawns on me is like, okay, being in on a ship to defend the country, I think that's a worthy thing. But when you're going in and attacking other countries and like currently the political reasoning for it is oil. And it's
Right.
like
Yeah.
I don't want to, even if I'm just sitting in that. And here's the thing: when you're in an aircraft carrier, you're pretty much sitting back in the operations area and waiting as the aircraft are launching, sending God knows what to destroy people's livelihoods and their lives.
Right.
And you're comfortable. You get food, you get stable salary, you get roof over your head. I mean, it's just a comfortable, but you need to obey orders. And I was like, I couldn't do that. But the thing is, to be a conscientious objector, you have to follow in the military. You have to follow a religion. If you're an agnostic or non-religious, they don't say you're a conscientious objector. So anyone
Mhm.
who's ever in the military or thinks about joining and files conscientious objector status, they won't validate that unless unless you pick a religion. But
Mhm.
that was just something interesting to throw in there. So during 9/11, when that happened, it was on our TV screens on the ship, and just something didn't feel right at that point. Because I was waiting on a replacement to arrive, someone who will replace me on the ship. Because I told them months and months in advance that I'm gonna disobey orders when the time comes when we're gonna go bombing. And so all this practice stuff, I'll the training for the pilots and other people is like, yeah, I'll help, but I'm not gonna take part in it. And so they knew that, and it was a 2-man team. Usually, you have a 3-man team with 8-hour shifts. We each had 12-hour shifts. So if I left, the other guy would have 24-hour shift. And even during the times of operation, if 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 they're during ops, flight ops and stuff, if he had to fix something or I had to fix something, we automatically have to have someone else there, the other technician. So that I'd have to be woken up or he'd have to be woken up. So sometimes we have more than 12-hour shifts. So spent all
Mhm.
this time waiting, and 9/11 happened, and I said, "Okay, it's time. I'm going to be disobeying orders." That's all I said, and they go, and the petty officer, just knew my situation. He's like, "I know." I'm gonna, and then so he went to go get the lieutenant, and the lieutenant goes, told the chief to give me an order, and it was just a simple order. And then chief gave me an order, and I said no. And so it was a very weird situation, but it was
Yeah.
great. I loved the people, in my division. It was great. But that was kind of the start of my journey. Is like 9/11, whether it was real or not, I couldn't participate in just carpet bombing some country just on a hunch.
Right.
And And so fast forward many years later, when the internet starts to take off, I do like to browse forums and just odd things, and I come across things like 9/11 was fake, and or a psyop, or it was an
Inside
inside
job.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And I just keep it in my mind as like, yeah, maybe, but we'll never find out the truth. And it's hard to find out the truth. All it is just a bunch of misdirections and just oddities. And and then the weird thing is with every big organized attack that hits U.S. soil, or something like that, or a whole bunch of deaths. There, when you really look into it, and this is with everything, anything with conspiracy theory, there's just weird oddities and flaws, and the official story never adds up. And they don't expect people to go and really look into it. They expect people to see it, hear it, and if anyone disagrees with it, they're called crazies. But I don't know what it is, but I just kept looking into it, and I was like, okay, this all makes sense. It's it's most likely an inside job. Either that, or you have to just say that the government or the military is incompetent, and so incompetent that they let this happen. Yet
Right.
we're gonna give them more control. We're gonna let them um, violate
Yeah.
the
Extend their
Constitution of the
powers.
United States.
Right.
They're that incompetent. We need to give them more money and more control. That doesn't make sense to
Yeah.
me.
More power.
Yeah. So on that end, it's like, um, it's just there's a more those are reasons to have those attacks, right? If they can
Hmm.
get more money, more people paying money into it, more people giving up their rights, they'll keep doing it. And so
Yeah.
I feel like, well, if they're gonna keep doing it, and they can make up whatever they want with media, make up whatever legislation they want with government, what's gonna stop them? No one's gonna stop them. And
Yeah.
so
Exactly.
it was just a really slow path towards like, I didn't I didn't make videos at that time. I just did my own research, and it
Hey,
never.
hold on, brother.
Okay,
Hold on. We're at break.
okay.
We'll be right back, everyone, for second hour.
Wow, it's been an hour already.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, welcome back, everybody, for a second hour. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here on Revolution Radio. And I have a special guest with me, Ebon Kim. Ebon, you there, brother?
Yes, I am.
All right, well, let me turn it back over to you and give you a chance to finish up your testimony in as far as your journey to awakening. We'll take it transition into flat Earth whenever, but we've got time, so take your time in covering the story, and then we'll follow it up with how it is and why it is that you believe the Earth is flat.
Okay. So to make everything short, I I would just focus on two things that I have to other people that I need to keep doing. One is surpass expectations. Um, People will have expectations of you, and it's usually going to be very low. You can surpass those easily. The expectation that matters is your own expectation, and to actually surpass the expectations of even your own self is to get past your comfort level, get past your comfort zone, get out of that comfort zone every once in a while. You don't have to do it all the time. Just get out of it every once in a while. And also, my favorite is from the movie Gattaca is don't save anything for the return trip. Don't go 50% at something and saying if it doesn't work, well, you know, I have something else, because you're never going to get to the next level. You're going to be play it too safe. You're not going to be fully invested into it in accomplishing those goals. For example, when I was in like Redmond, Washington, Seattle, Washington, that's where I used to live, and I got a job at Microsoft, testing games, except they just needed a fourth person. I was pretty good at video games, but I wasn't like playing professionally. The team that I had and I was playing with is they were like the first, second, third best of the world, right? And I've
Uh-huh.
beaten them plenty of times. Even the best player in the world at that time took over some of and I have so many stories of this. We put money on it, and I beat him twice easily. And like the best Korean player in the world would play, and I'd beat him at the game. And best Japanese player in a tournament, no one played longer than 15 minutes because he was so good. He just beat everyone, and then I played him and I beat him. But that wasn't because
What game?
I was necessarily good. It was just that I just knew the game. I just knew, it's more knowing something is almost better than being excelling at it, because if people don't know a certain aspect of it, you can take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can I don't know what that term is right now, but it's just a really easy to take advantage of someone, no matter how good they are, by just knowing something they don't know about whatever it is that you're doing, or the system, the game, whatever it is. Now, and then the most I ever made was $19.50. I only have a high school diploma. I went to college, pretty much dropped out. I just didn't care for it. I had depression, this whole other story. So I moved to Boston in 2008. I had an outing with my brother. It was just my mother support me. I only had $500 in my pocket, nothing else. Moved to Boston, Massachusetts. Had no job lined up. $500, just a backpack full of clothes, and at the end of 10 years, I was married, had a kid, was making around $150,000 a year, salary, add up everything. And now we're moved back to like Columbus, Nebraska, where I am now. I make no money. I don't have a job. I'm still living off of what I saved up, and I've got to figure out things. And I kind of have an idea, but I'm still at this point where I'm learning, and there's things to accomplish, but I don't want to go back just doing what I was doing. I just have to go and focus on what I want to do now, but figure a way where I could just keep going. And so, if you just focus on it, get out of your comfort zone. I mean, I don't tell anyone go with just $500, knowing no one at where you're going, and being able to do all that stuff. It could have been luck, but who knows, right? But you just have to focus on it and do things like that. So 2016 comes, and at this point, I was like, okay, I was really into the Bernie Sanders during the 2016 election, and that's kind of what woke me up. Is like, hey, there's this person. He's speaking what he wants to speak. He's not really like an egocentric guy. He's just kind of an old guy that just kind of says it as it is, and I was impressed by it. Um,
Mm.
and then he got cheated by the DNC and Hillary Clinton, and all of a sudden he talked with President Barack Obama, and he came out because he was going into the whole thing is like, even if I'm behind, I'm going to contest during the Democratic convention. And then he talks with Barack Obama, and then all of a sudden he comes out and says, I support Hillary Clinton, and I'm going to keep supporting her and she's going to be the DNC nominee. And I was like, what? Why? I thought you were going to contest it. And so at that point, I was waking up to just like, it's now in your face. The corruption is in everyone's faces. It's out there. I mean, it's hard to avoid it. You'd have to really be so cognitive dissonant, so brainwashed, so hypnotized that you can't see it. They would openly just tell you lies, tell you anything, cheat, just do things openly, and they'll not only would they get away with it, they'll go to prison, and it'd be like for 6 months in this nice little prison. They're out. It's like a child molester, right? A child molester. 9 months, you're out. It's like, what?
Right.
This isn't justice. I mean, if it was anyone else, they'd be in prison for life. And so, that's just, it was just layers upon layers of things where finally I realized, okay, it's peeling back so many layers. It's not like I'm building upon myself. I'm just tearing away the unessentials. It's kind of like how Bruce Lee would talk about sculpting. You don't add in stuff to make a sculpture. You just tear away all the unessentials,
Right.
and what lies underneath is what comes out.
Right.
So that's the whole thing. Eventually, I tried ayahuasca. That experience, meeting Mother, kind of being humbled, seeing everyone goes through it. Everyone feels that same pain that she bears. You meet her the first time you try it, and every time you take it, I've only taken it twice. You get lesson from her. First time, you know who you are. You know why you're there. You know that the things that are, you see the signs, like during that whole process going up to it, where I was gonna take that experience, there were signs that I had in my head that I didn't know were signs, because I would buy fresh fruit and certain things, and I didn't even read into it more before that. I would read afterwards and saying, you'd want something like oranges or lemons or whatever, and fresh fruit and all this other stuff. Is like, it was just something that I was preparing for, and I got at the store, or all this other stuff. And then I took it, and it's like, there was a reason why I had to get those things. Like something knew that I was preparing to do this and was getting me ready for it. Because if I wasn't ready for it, I think I would have just had like the worst type of hangover thing experience, whatever it was. And so I came out of that, the first experiences, I was like, I am all powerful, I know who I am, and all this other stuff. But the thing is, the second time I took it was a very negative, horrible experience. It's not like, it was just a very humbling experience, because all that power and ego and whatever you have, it's for a reason. It's not for you to just flaunt it, right? And so that was the lesson. It was just be humble, and you know, to be humble, you really have to apologize for your past mistakes to other people, even if they were in the wrong and you weren't. You just kind of have to go out there and say, you know what, I'm sorry. And I would call up people I've never talked to, didn't want to talk to, you know, never heard from for a long time, even my father and my aunts and whatever. And I did it. I made the attempt, and I feel better for it. I'm glad. And, you know, there's still more of that process maybe that I have to make, but it definitely changes changed my perspective, and I don't when I recognize signs, like I pay attention to them. I don't just throw it out. Like, for example, compass, and we're gonna get to this later. It's like I'd rather just make a video or play video games or read a book, and all I think about is a compass. It's like, why am I thinking about compass so much? Because because I figured, okay, I'm focusing on the North Pole, and I know all compasses point north, but what's with the compass? And then I'd go compass. Is it maybe like, why would they name it compass and name it sound like come and pass? Like, if the Latin translation for come is like together, and then Latin for pass or passos is something like step or pace, just like pace together or step together. But where would you step to? And it's like, say who invented the compass? Like, you're the first person to invent the compass. Like, you have this needle that points in one direction all the time. No matter where you're moving, you're turning, it's pointing in that same direction. And you're going, what's in that direction? So you look at the sky, right, during the daytime, you don't really see anything where the needle's pointing. And then at the night, you look, if you're up in the northern hemisphere, you'll see it's Polaris. It's pointing to the North Star. And so once you figure that out, it's like daytime. Well, what comes on the very like 90 degrees from it, it's going to be the sun. Most likely, give or take a few degrees, depending on where you're living. But sun rises on the east, sun sets on the west. But no one's ever going to say like if it doesn't point south for any reason, not magnetically. And there's no fixed point. So if it did point south, how would you know where it's pointing to? There's no fixed point in the stars. The sun or the moon or the whatever doesn't rise or set from south all the time. So there's something definitely interesting with the compass, the name, why it points north all the time. And the reason that they would name it like that is just interesting, and something that, like, it doesn't get out of my head very much. And so I just focus on that things with the magnetic North Pole, how, like, so the flat Earth at that point was, okay, there's truthers that I'd listen to, and they keep talking about flat Earth. And I was like, I've always, like, I didn't really care about what people thought of me, so I was just like, okay, let's look into flat Earth, because I've went down almost every rabbit hole. There's so many rabbit holes, and what's funny is the mainstream media went, because like I can debunk NASA, how NASA fakes everything, and moon landings were fake. And what's funny is mainstream media, every time they go, oh, he thinks NASA and the moon landing was a hoax. What's next? He's going to be a flat earther. I was like, why do they keep saying that? They always say that. It's like, why do they always say that? But it's true.
Right.
Once you debunk NASA and know that the moon landings were faked and it's all a hoax, you become a flat earther. I'm sorry, people, that if you want to keep looking, you're finally researching the flat Earth, you're gonna become a flat earther. It's just funny. It's hilarious in some way. It's just.
Did you see the Apollo 11 where they tried to create the illusion that the Earth was a globe by using the window?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
That was one of the ones that.
Yeah, because if the Earth is a ball, why do you have to fake it? And then if you're faking it, how can anything that you say be of any kind of credibility? Because if they're going to lie and hoax that, what else are they lying and hoaxing?
Yeah, the moon is such a desolate place, right? Even if you look at it with your bare eyes or through a telescope, it's just very looks like lifeless. It's not beautiful at all. But when you see Earth, or how you would imagine Earth being pictured from the moon, it should be beautiful with land, the sea, the clouds, and even if you look at the CGI pictures, it's beautiful. Or you look at pictures in the hot air balloon, it's beautiful. You look at mountaintops, it's beautiful. Anywhere you're on Earth, it's beautiful, right? You would think, like me, I'd start taking pictures everywhere. But going to the moon, you would think they would take pictures from the moon on Earth, right? Take pictures of Earth from the moon, or going towards the Earth or going away from Earth. Just take pictures upon pictures. None of it.
24-hour live stream.
Yeah, and
Multiple, you know?
exactly. And we have the International Space Station that orbits the Earth. What do we see every
Supposedly.
time
Right.
they live stream? They're doing tricks. They have astronauts
Right.
doing tricks in what they say is zero gravity.
Right.
I mean, they're not doing anything scientific, anything worthwhile. We're giving them millions of dollars a day, yet anytime they're doing a live feed within the International Space Station, they're just talking or doing some tricks. It's like, that's not what we really care for them to do, right? It was cool the first time, but give us something tangible. Give us something, run some experience. I could give off 10 very cool experiences to do in zero gravity. They don't do it at all. They don't even accept like people just, hey, why don't people in the world give us ideas to do inside the International Space Station in zero G? They don't even do that. So when we get to the magnetic North Pole, we have all these videos on the moon. In the moon, that's what, 216,000 miles away.
Yeah.
We have to go through all these things that they say, radiation belt, and they have to have just perfect telemetry data to get there. Of course, that could be done on something that was less powerful than like a smartphone from like 10 years ago. And all this stuff. And they land on it 6 out of 6 times. They got a rover. They're driving around on it. Yet zero videos of magnetic North Pole. Zero. And it's not hundreds of thousands of miles away. It's no more than like 3,000 miles away from most places. And nothing. We could go through the harshest things, weirdest things in space, yet we can't get to the magnetic North Pole just to see what it's like. You'd think that would be an important thing. And when I researched more, they say the magnetic North Pole is weak magnetically. That the place in Florida, they created like in 1999 something that was 2 million times more powerful than Earth's magnetic pole. 2 million times. But of course, we never see these weird fluctuations of a compass just starting to point towards like Florida. We always still see it pointing north, even though the magnetic North Pole isn't as strong as what they say they just created. So it's just like all these fluctuations of the magnetic North Pole, how it's moving. I don't believe that. What they say how weak the magnetic North Pole is, I don't believe that. I mean, even if it's that weak, it should be somewhat strong. And I would say, like, what if there's just something like that magnetic force accumulated different types of metals, like ancient metals even? Wouldn't it benefit people like archaeological explorers or something to go there to see if anything accumulated within this magnetic area, any type of metal, and especially like say just like swords from way back in like 200 BC, like a gladius or something like that. It's like you could sell that on eBay for like $1 million, and that expedition probably costs like 15,000. Why don't people go and just try it and check it out?
Right. Yeah, it says that even though the iron pins and nails in the boats would be attracted to the magnetic mountain, to the Rupus Negra.
Yeah.
And so if it's that strong, who knows what kind of stuff is drawn to it,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so I just think there's a lot there. They're hiding it for us for a reason. Like the most important stuff they don't hide. The most important stuff they hide. The stuff that they just kind of want to, like a misdirection, they show you and say, hey, don't go here. We don't want you to go here. But, this is what's there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Magnetic North Pole, nothing's there. You don't even want to go there because nothing's there, and it's dangerous. It's super dangerous. Yet a lot of accounts and reports is that it doesn't really get super cold. It actually gets warmer, and it stays brighter longer, right? Rather than it it being darker because you'd be moving further away from the equator where the sun's
Hmm.
would expose more. So it just feels like there's an anomaly there, and it's just worth investigating. And the thing is it has to take a certain person. Like you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to be dedicated. Go there all the way, or don't go at all, or don't even think about going.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of people who reached that are doing what they're doing. This is why I like when new people wake up, and people who are awake, they keep doing what they're doing, because then we eventually find people. Like I found I found Mark Sargent, I found a lot of different people who've woken up and just kept going. It's like it's such a great resource. We could go and talk to them, email or call, and just kind of just get their information, rather than just them taking a blue pill and going back to just their 9 to 5 jobs and whatnot.
Right.
But then there's also people who have to either pick up that mantle, or and the people who've been doing their research and making all those videos, they go and do what they wanted to do and explore it further. Or there's the new people who wake up, they either do the same thing or they are going to have to go even further, because eventually we're all going to have to, someone's going to have to act. Someone's going to have to
Right.
take over all the things that they're lying about and actually do like the experiments, go and do the explorations,
The
go.
old war explorers,
Yeah. So
like
it,
chasing down the Amazon River and stuff.
exactly. And so we're getting to that point, and it's just going to be incredible once more people wake up and want something to do. And I'm one of those ones, like, I just can't sit and just keep reading all the time. I just have to go and find things out for myself.
Hmm. Which we'll go into that. But it reminds me of, like, the different people that were exploring and looking for El Dorado and all these different ancient cities and all these megalithic structures hidden by the jungles and, megalithic temple complexes. And now there's all this underwater archaeology taking places for places like Yonaguni. And supposedly there in Cuba, there's these huge megalithic temple complexes at the bottom of the ocean. And there's all kind of stuff. I believe that there's more stuff that we haven't discovered than has been discovered, and that there's just so much of it. Um, but yeah, I do agree that we need people to just go and check it out and to push it and to let us know. And so you are planning
Hmm.
a trip to the north
Yep.
and to the Arctic region. And so, can you talk about that and how and why it is you want to do it, and also how you foresee being able to accomplish that?
Well, it's not going to be easy from
Well, certainly
at
not.
any
Yeah.
point. So I'm doing it alone, and I think there's a good reason for it, because I have one of my lifelong friends since I was a kid wants to, even he doesn't agree with me on anything. He just wants to be there, right? But I can't allow that, because first the path there and probably even the path back is super dangerous. But
Right.
also when we're there, I think from the like, I'm not there to seek out treasure, right? To become a millionaire. Like, if I wanted to become a millionaire, I just keep having a high salary job, start
Right.
investing and all this other
Yeah.
stuff. It's like, I can get to that point. Why do I need to take a dangerous journey?
Right.
So this journey is to go there. If I can make it in and experience it and get information, pictures, videos out and show people, and it's like all it takes is that to get out to everyone, and it's almost game over. It's like flat Earth
Right.
plus
Right.
this is what's at the magnetic North Pole. It's just a big double whammy. And then if I don't get very far, even if I get pictures and video of it, where like whether it's a mountain or some lands where it's just, you would think it's just glaciers, but it's not. It's like almost like a paradise, like what they say is like that
Hmm.
right there. Even
Or
from far away, it's like I don't even have to get in there. I just have to zoom in my camera, and then so that's just worth it as well. But the thing is, there's so many uh like life is weird, but I haven't gotten to the weird part yet. Is that the accounts that you where he goes, they always say you have to be a child or at least to have the mind of a child to pass. And those that go and don't turn back, don't fear anything. Like you can't be afraid because you're just gonna turn back. And the reason most people turn back, they encounter a dragon or some big serpent form, of some kind, and most people see it and they go, "I'm out of here," and they go away. But the ones who just encounter it and go, I don't fear it. It's either they know it's illusion or that there's someone with them that's gonna protect them, and it turns out to be an illusion. So it's just weird. Like for me now, if I encounter a dragon, first I'm gonna take a picture of it in the video,
and
and then it's
then
like,
run.
yeah, either I run or it's like it's all true. This is all true. So if it's probably an illusion, so I'm gonna keep going, or that's when I die, or maybe it's like
Right.
I try to devise something whether to see if it is an illusion or something like that. Maybe I'll make like a decoy, and so if the decoy is safe, then I'd figure okay, most likely I'll be safe, or I'll just sneak behind if I can or something. Who knows? I don't know what to expect at the magnetic
Right.
North Pole. That's the problem. But just to make that attempt is what we need. More people, more chances of success. And I think the more people who go at the same time, the least amount of success there is. Because if I was someone I truly have a friendship for, I'm not going to leave them behind. Like if they get injured, I'm not going to leave them. I'm going to take them back. So there goes the entire journey. If I get to that point where I see that paradise, I see that dragon or whatever it is, they're not going to want to pass through, and I'm not going to have them wait for me as I go through, and they're going to have to go back alone, right? I mean, because they're not in it to go all the way. They're in it for me, and I don't want it. I don't want that responsibility. That's why I think going alone is the best way, because you don't have the excuses to turn back. I mean, there's plenty of reasons I don't want to go because I have family. I have like a 5-year-old daughter and like a 1.5-year-old son. So I'm planning on this to try to be quick, or plan it in a couple of years, where I have more information, where I could be more ready. Where like right now I'm not the most physically fit that I've ever been, so maybe I can spend time to do that, and maybe if I work at it, I save enough money to buy like a small boat, a small. I mean, like one of the accounts they were in a fishing sloop. I mean, that's pretty small sailboat right there.
Right. Right.
And that's almost better to navigate because they say that there's just a lot of ice flows out there. So rather than
Right.
breaking through, you can just kind of navigate in and around some of those areas. So it's my mindset is there. That's my goal. That's my journey that I'm preparing for. And if more people want to make that attempt on their own and do the same thing, take cameras, take video equipment, and go a certain way and then come back, I think that's just a lot of stuff that just can just get more people motivated to go. And once we find out what's there, it's almost it's a new world. It's a new territory because people want to explore. That's why people love space. I love the space. My favorite genre is science fiction, like space opera, Star Wars, Gattaca was of it, like Futurama, even the cartoon, Firefly, the show, and like I did a whole video is I love this stuff, yet I'm a flat earther. Why would I want to be that? But it's not really about the space. It's just about exploration. Exploration is what really drives most of humanity. Is we want to explore, we want to create, we want to make things different, make things better. No one comes into life saying, hey, I want to make things worse. How can I make things worse in life? That's That's all I want to do. Almost no one does that, especially a kid, you know?
Right.
So it's just we got to get back that motivation as a species, um, and just that mindset is just a good mindset. It's a positive mindset, in my opinion, and I think it's good for people because a lot of people just kind of repeat the same cycle every day for months, for years, and they don't do anything new. They don't get out of their comfort zone. They don't see a purpose in life. I mean, is the purpose in life to just make money, retire, and have a high view of from people that they know? You know, it's
Hmm.
like is that it? Just if that's it, I'm like, no, it's not it. It'd be too much of a disappointment. I mean, even the whole evolutionary stage thing, which I don't agree with. I mean, like they say dinosaurs have been around for hundreds of millions of years, and some of the scientists go, you know, some of them evolved to birds. Like our chicken was probably a dinosaur. So what they're telling us is that if humans, we've been around for hundreds of thousands of years, not even hundreds of millions, that after hundreds of millions of years, we're going to evolve into some flying creature that we're like a tenth the size of. I mean, isn't
Uh-huh.
that ridiculous?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider they say we evolved of monkeys or apes, and yet the monkeys and apes are still with us, you know.
Mm,
So, and where's the whole missing link? And why haven't they changed into humans?
yeah.
So, but you know, with regard to like kids, you know, when I was with my friends, we used to always love just going out into the woods, you know, just exploring the woods and climbing trees and topping the next mountain and just seeing what's on the other side. You know, there's that inquisitiveness, that uh, wanting to explore and look at and check out the world around us. And I think that especially with our having to reconsider a lot of what we thought we knew of the reality, and especially with the North, since all the mythologies, the Mount of the Congregation, and you know, the Eden land around that area, and there being an entrance even into the interior of the earth, which I do believe that's an interior. The interior is where Sheol is, but still, you know, the smoking god, the what you were talking about, how they took a small sloop and were able to enter into and found a benevolent race of giants. I mean, who knows, you know, but just the whole idea of exploration. And then also, with regard to the ancient cultures and civilizations, the mythology with regard to the Atlanteans and the Asgardians and the Hyperboreans are that these particular people lived in the north, and that is the origin of culture, high culture, and high society. That it had its roots and its foundations, that paradise was found at the North Pole. William Warren, you know, a Baptist minister, wrote a whole book about this and talked about, you know, all the mythologies from around the world that spoke about these people that lived there in the north and how they had just far surpassing um, our technology, our culture, our civilization, that really, instead of being at the height of civilization now, that we are really at the lowest point and the most degradation as far as the collapse of what was, and um, being lost and split off and separated from what was the old ancient cultures where they had just incredible knowledge and high technology and greater capacity than, you know, we can even do now. I mean, just the fact that you look at the kind of buildings we built, and even I don't know if you started looking into the whole Tartaria
Yeah. Yeah. I
stuff,
went
but
across
I mean,
Tartaria.
yeah, I mean the whole Tartarian empire and civilization and all that, and the free energy devices and
Mhm.
the things connected to that civilization, and that was just wiped out a couple hundred years ago. I mean,
Yeah. And
it's
just
mind
to
blowing.
add in with William Warren, what people don't know, William F. Warren, he wasn't just that, but he was also the first president of Boston University. So a lot of people go, credentials matter. You can't just listen to some guy on the internet. This guy was the first president of the University of Boston, and not just for a little time, 30 years. I mean, I don't think there's
Hmm.
anyone out there that has credentials like William F. Warren. So
Right,
you want to
right.
talk trash about like the ancient stuff doesn't matter. This guy spent his lifetime on it, and he was a president of one of the most prestigious colleges in the world. Not just the United States. I mean, Boston University. A lot
Hmm.
of people go. I mean, Massachusetts has so many colleges, and Boston University is a big one. And so, yeah,
Right.
I just like to add that in there too, because like it doesn't matter. I mean, we're all people's. I think a lot of flat earthers just get excited when someone with like some pedigree kind of joins the club and stuff like that. But that really doesn't matter. But if it has to impress people to wake people up, we got to. I think that's one good reason for it. Because I mean, it's like, hey, what's your credentials? You only have a high school degree. Yeah, but the stuff that I'm looking at was written by a person who is the president of the Boston University for 30 years. What are your credentials?
Hmm.
So
Right. Well, with regard to credentials and PhD and diplomas and degrees and all that, in my opinion, that just shows the level of your indoctrination and your brainwashing into supporting the whole system and the matrix of illusion that has been established to keep us ignorant and dumbed down and separated from what is real and what is sacred and what is truth. And so, I don't have any great respect. I have a college degree, but as far as PhDs and all that, I don't give any more respect to people that have those kind of letters and those kind of degrees and those kind of things behind their name. In my opinion, it just shows that they're more a slave to the system than most people are.
yeah, um, there's a lot of questions I want to ask you if we've got time for it.
Yeah, sure. We've got some time, so go ahead.
So in the what do you think? Like, I would say the reason that the governments and media and whoever just hides the um, the magnetic North Pole from us. Do you think they know exactly what's there? Do you think they have access to it, free access, or do you think it's like they just they can't access it and they don't want anyone else to access it? Like, what do you think is just the degree of involvement with the controllers who don't want us to know what's at the magnetic North Pole?
I think there's two levels to it. I think that one is that there's a spiritual component to it, and that people that have ill intent or that are um, like New World Order elites, that perhaps there's a spiritual barrier that especially for the whole thing of entrance into paradise. Like even in the Bible, it talks about how the two cherubim were put into place with this flaming sword guard to keep people away from the tree of life. But that the entrance into Sheol, that would be a different thing. But I do believe that there's a spiritual component to it, almost like what we see with the Wonder Woman and that island,
Mm-hmm.
how there was that kind of facade, that illusion that kept the outside world from knowing what was there. But I do believe that the ancient explorers in like the Inventio Fortunata, that particular book, and also in John Dee's letter and the Mercator map, it talks about this large magnetic mountain, the Rupus Negra, being at the center of the Earth plane, and that there was this huge whirlpool there that was an entrance into the hollow Earth, and that it drank the waters of the oceans, and then um, every 6 hours would reverse course, and then would spit and spew the waters out, and that was what created high and low tide.
Hmm.
And so, and then in the mythologies, like for instance with Virgil and the Aeneid and Jason and Argonauts and also Odysseus in the Iliad, it speaks about them encountering this whirlpool, which they believed it was a sea monster called Charybdis. But still, when you understand the intricacies and the detail of what we're dealing with regard to the real cosmology, then that is what connects to what these ancient mythologies are actually alluding to. And so I do believe that people can go and visit and see as the ancient explorers did, because they did encounter these kind of things. And so, um, how, whether there's some kind of spiritual component that keeps people out or protects these areas from, but still, random people have come across, shared in their experiences and their testimonies as to having encountered these areas. And then there's, interesting manuscripts like the Colburn Bible, which speak about this particular area, especially in a text called the Scroll of Thothis, which I cover in great detail in a show you can find on YouTube, the Scroll of Thothis, Thothis, and it speaks about the giants and the Cyclops and these different people living in around that area. And it speaks about that also in the mythologies of Odysseus, how he and his men encountered this Cyclops and were caught in his cave for a long time until they were able to trick him and take out his eye and um, they climbed on the belly of the sheep to get out of there. But those kind of things are found in the mythologies. They're also found in the ancient maps and in the ancient testimonies. And so I do believe that we can experience and check out and see the same kind of things if we were able to get up to and travel in and around um, and search out those kind of areas.
And for those who say, it's just all a myth, the thing is a lot of those stories are shared across different civilizations from thousands of years ago. I mean, is it just
Right,
coincidence they came with the same story, the same objects, the same types of the things that they would encounter on their journey? Which is, I mean, the names might change, but their encounters have always been the same.
right.
So it's just that's something to also think into. It's just like,
Yeah.
is that just coincidence that many civilizations
No,
would just come up with the
there's
same
no
thing?
coincidence.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it's always just, you have to kind of have a little bit of, remain skeptical. But I mean, like, what are
Yeah,
the
to me,
odds?
those are confirming witness. They're
Yeah.
confirming witnesses. And the Bible says that out of the mouths of two or three witnesses shall the truth be established. And so I do believe that in looking at, examining, especially the ancient maps, the commentary, and then looking at the ancient explorers and the testimonies that they've shared, yeah, absolutely. That's why I wrote the book Paradise Sides of the North and the Mount of the Congregation, where I share and explain all these things from
Mhm.
not only the biblical perspective and the legends, for instance, of the Jews and the rabbinical commentaries, but also of like the um, the Vedic cosmology, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the fifth canto. It goes into great detail as to this particular area. Bhumandala, it speaks about, same as in Eden in Genesis chapter 3, this four quadrants divided by the four rivers and all joining together and to be funneled by this indrawing sea. And that this indrawing sea, every 6 hours, it will reverse course and spew out the waters of the ocean. And, it creates the tides, the high and the low tides. And so, yeah, I absolutely believe that these kind of things are there and can be witnessed if somebody can get there to check them out.
Yeah. And that's where I'm just using the swastika a lot. because I think that might have been a representation of
The
the
black sun,
yeah,
yeah, the interior sun,
because they've got them everywhere. Every civilization has that symbol.
right,
It's not like someone said, "Hey, that's an interesting symbol that they had. Let's make our own version of it."
right,
There's a reason for it, and
right. And
so
even though, most people associate the swastika with the Nazis and with the Fourth Reich and the Holocaust and the decimation of the Jews, it was an ancient symbol before they ever started to use it.
yeah,
And it was a reference to this hollow sun, this interior sun called the Smoky God in that particular work. That the two fishermen that went down there and speak about this, and that actually came out in the South Pole, which, in my opinion, shows that there's a connection between the North and the South within the interior of the Earth. But that, I think also that the the um, Aboris borealis, the aurora borealis, that it has connections to this particular phenomena as well.
yeah.
And then you have, like, the ancient stories, Journey to the Center of the Earth, that in similarity talks about some of this stuff.
Now, another thing to that I wanted to ask you is, and of course, I kind of have an answer from speaking to you on the phone before this. Is the what's there? Is it evil? Is it good? Is it both? Is it like what is it to expect? Like if there's something imprisoned there, which um says please free me, like do I free it or do I keep it imprisoned? Like, but I guess it's all up to judgment at that point. But then it's so hard because the evil seems to always lie in the shadows, lie and whatever. So I mean, maybe it's just for me just to observe and not make any action, right? But still, am I encountering demons, angels, god, devil, whatever is the demiurge? What, like, there's everyone has so many different opinions. If we do get there, what's there to encounter? Is it going to be paradise? Is it going to be hell? Like,
Well, yeah, and according to the ancient mythologies, in my opinion on the subject, is that paradise we will only be able to go to after we leave our bodies. That there is most certainly a spiritual protection on gaining access and entrance to paradise. And like I said, the flaming cherubim are put into place to protect the tree of life. And paradise is above the vaulted dome of the earth. It's said to be in the third heaven. And you can't go there in the physical, that only after death and only if you are worthy. But Sheol, on the other hand, the hollow earth entrance, the abysmal chasm, what is described as the bottomless pit. The angel of the bottomless pit, Apollyon and Abaddon, which means the destroyer, that is Satan, the demiurge, also called Saklas and Samael, the angel or the viper of God. He's in the Targum in chapter 3. Samael is the name of the angel, the feathered serpent, which beguiles Eve and impregnates her with Cain. And Cain is the firstborn son of the devil, and he is the progenitor of the wicked bloodlines, the devil's children here upon the earth. And also in the mythologies, it describes in Isaiah chapter 13, and also the Cave of Treasures in the Book of the Bee, that the giants are imprisoned in the interior of the earth and the locust army, and that these supernatural deities will be released at the end of days in order to bring the wrath of God and judgment upon those not written into the books of life. And so, in my opinion, these, even though in the Smoky God it presents them as being, the giants that were encountered were benevolent and did not in any way want to harm the two individuals that went down into the interior of the earth. It is said, and it historically has been tied, that the giants are cannibals, and that they eat the flesh and drink the blood of humanity. And that's one of the reasons why God, when he restored Noah and his family and brought the flood on to wipe out the giants, because that's what the flood was brought on the world for, was to decimate the giants and not humanity. It says in the second book of Baruch that 409,000 giants were killed by the flood, and it was specifically to wipe out the cannibalism and the blood drinking that was going on during that time. And Noah was given a new covenant that, before then they were vegetarians, but he said that they could eat the meat so long as it did not have the blood within it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a new covenant that was established with Noah. And so, in my opinion, if you go into the interior of the earth, you're gonna meet with the devils and the demons, but that the North Pole itself is Jacob's ladder, and there is a portal both that the higher angels and the lower angels legion are both using them and have access to that area. And so you could encounter both, good angel or bad, and I think a lot has to do with your intent, but certainly pray yourself up before going in there.
Yeah,
We got one more minute, brother.
okay, sure. I guess is if I found the access easy, like the entire journey that everyone says is saying it's difficult, that it's really not difficult. Do you think you would take that journey?
I would not go into the interior. As far as going around the North Pole and around that area,
Mm-hmm.
certainly I would check that out and explore it, and I'd love to see it. Just make sure you're not on a boat when the indrawing sea is,
Yeah,
sucking in all the oceans of the world and
yeah.
draining into the interior. But yeah, I think it would be a fascinating place to explore. And there's also said to be there a lot of creatures and beings that are not, that we don't have access to. And so, who knows what you would meet there? And I think that if you are in relationship and aligned with the Most High God, that He will protect you no matter where you go. But again, that all depends on your intent.
Yeah. Thanks for all the information and wisdom, and uh, it's it's just it's really difficult because there's no one else really to talk to about the Zen. Did you know
Yeah,
that? It's like you can't talk to just. I mean, if there is a profession out there, they don't really relate to the public. It's probably private study. I'm pretty sure that there's someone out there that are a couple people or an organization that studies things like this, but they don't ever converse with the public or anyone who
yeah,
wants to talk about it.
yeah.
It's so I'm very grateful that you allowed me to talk with you and get information out of you, and please keep going. And if I get information out and I get big, I'll send whatever I can your way, because the cost of living here in Columbus, Nebraska is really low.
Yeah.
I was able to
We'll
stretch.
talk again
Yeah.
soon, brother.
All right. Thank you very
But
much.
show's over. So
Okay.
God bless all. Good night.
Good night.
Shalom.
Bye.